All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Robert C. Williams Museum of Papermaking's virtual talk, Hiapo from Niue and Hawaiian Kapa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you to my speakers it's probably mid-afternoon for you now. So thank you for joining. Despite the time difference, thank you to our guest curators, Lisa Miles and Jill Powers, who are here tonight as well. Thank you to Maya, who is running the chat for us. And our director of our museum, Virginia Howell, is also on the chat tonight. So we have a whole group that is joining us to tell you just a little bit about the museum. We are located in Atlanta, Georgia, on the Georgia Tech campus. We are off 10th Street, if you're familiar with the Atlanta area. And it is our mission to collect, preserve, increase, disseminate knowledge about paper making, past, present, and future. And we have a wide variety of exhibitions here. We have our permanent galleries, the history of paper making, a room about our founder, Dart Hunter, as well as a section for the industrialization of paper making, so from hand to machine, the evolution that we see there, as well as two changing gallery spaces, which is where the show Bark Rhythms that our artists are speaking about their pieces from tonight are featured. And we often have 3 shows a year. We change them out with the semester season with the university schedule. And they're either a group of artists like we have tonight, they are traveling shows, or they are shows from our collection. And we host a huge amount of education programs as well. This is one of them. We host a lot of tours, hands-on workshops, virtual lectures, virtual demonstrations. We have a variety of online resources as well, including some YouTube tutorials, lesson plans, etc., that are all available on our website at paper.gatech.edu. All right, so to welcome our speakers again, we will be hearing from Dalani Tanahy tonight first, and then Ms. Cora-Allen, and then Lehuauakea as well. And so I'm going to start out with an introduction to Ms. Dalani in just a moment, but I want to give our guest curators a chance to give a brief introduction about the exhibition before we dive into our speakers. So Jill, I believe you wanted to say a word or two.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. Lisa Miles, my co-curator, and I are both really excited for tonight's program. This whole series of programs has given us the opportunity to connect in real time with artists from the exhibition. So we're looking forward to the artists that we'll get to meet tonight. So when we had the vision for this exhibition, we really wanted to present both traditional bark paper and bark cloth alongside contemporary makers using those materials and honoring those traditions. And so, although not comprehensive worldwide, we have included art from Indonesia, Northern Africa, Mexico, the Polynesian Islands, and Hawaii. And so we've been really fascinated to discover the interesting crossovers and connections between these different cultures and continents. And the fibers, the tools, and the techniques are often really similar, despite these traditions being separated by sometimes vast distances. So we wanted to have some thanks go out to the RCW Museum of Papermaking for sponsoring this, and also the North American Hand Papermakers. And a big thank you to all of our artists, especially who are in the show, and to the 3 that we're going to hear from tonight, which I'm really excited to hear from.
Thank you so much, Jill. Okay, so to introduce our first speaker to you tonight, we have Dalani Tanahy, and she is a native of San Diego, California, with maternal roots in Hawaii, and has lived in Makaha, Oahu. Forgive me for any mispronunciations. I practiced, but I may still screw them up. She's lived in Makaha Oahu since 1986, and she has been a practitioner and teacher of the arts of Hawaiian Kapa, or bark cloth making, for over 30 years. Dalani's work has been one of revival, as the art of kapa was dormant for almost 100 years. To create the kapa, she grows the paper mulberry trees, makes tools, and grows and gathers the plants for dyes. Teaching kapa ensures that the art is not lost again, and she is currently an instructor at the University of Hawaii West Oahu campus. As a researcher, Dalani has been able to travel and study collections globally, and has also has her work in permanent collections at the British Museum in London, the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C., and the National Museum of New Zealand, Te Papa o Tongarewa. As a commissioned artist, Dalani has an original and graphic work in many hotels, resorts, and other properties in Hawaii, including the Olani Disney Resort and Spa, the Ka Makana Ali'i Mall in Kapoli, Oahu, the St. Andrew's Priory and Royal Patrons Chapel in Honolulu, Oahu, and many more. Dalani's work as a traditional Hawaiian practitioner and cultural ambassador has been recognized by the Polynesian Culture Center as a recipient of the Lei of a Living Treasure Award in 2013, and a Native Hawaiian Artist Fellow with the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation in 2015, and the Hawaii State Legislature recognition as a Mana Wahine o Makaha, Hawaiian Kapa and arts practitioner in 2019. She has also been a two-time participant in the Festival of Pacific Arts and Cultures in American Samoa in 2012 and Hawaii in 2024. All right, so Dalani would like to start by sharing a video.
Aloha, my name is Dalani Tanahy. I'm a Hawaiian kapa maker, and I was asked to say a little bit about ohikapala and printing on Hawaiian kapa. I've been able to help a number of departments within the UH system to print their kihei that they wear for graduation. And when they come to me to do this, and we talk a little bit about what designs and things potentially mean or what they might have meant in the past. And because the art of Hawaiian kapa was not directly passed down to today's practitioners ancestrally, in other words, my grandmother did not teach me how to do this, we've had to kind of learn either from our sisters in the rest of Polynesia, through the writings that were done by travelers in the 17 and 1800s, as well as the Hawaiian historians who also documented it. And so while we were able to kind of figure out a lot of the methods and things for making kapa, which is the bark cloth that was made by people in Polynesia to use for their clothing, things like the designs, we didn't really get a lot of information about, not their names, not what they meant. There was also big changes in design and how they were executed on the cloth. And so the one I'll talk about that we use is the ones using the ohikapala, which is the bamboo stamps. And we kind of believe this is more of a modern, modern meaning 1800s and after craftsmen in Hawaii got metal to use instead of shark's teeth and stone things. But it seems, that those things, everything didn't necessarily have a meaning to it. And again, if it did, we didn't know. We didn't know what it was called, but also the way it was used. So these are a lot of nuances of the art that, people don't always understand, because they look at the design and they say, oh, what does this mean? Or, what is this talking about? What is this all saying? But when you stamp, the method of stamping is to put the stamps right next to each other like this, so that they connect, so that they make this kind of continuous lines like this. But when you look at a stamp, and say you looked at this stamp and said, what does it mean? I don't know, it's a stamp we made up. But the other thing is that when people ask me to make a kapa for them, they come to me with a story. And they say, can you tell this story in the kapa, using kapa design with stamps that I don't know what they mean? So I use the same group of stamps. I just give them different stories and meanings whenever I use them, whoever I think is best appropriate for that job. So when people ask me to make a kapa about how they were healed from cancer and that journey, or to talk about their children and their personalities, or to talk about a new stage in their life, embracing their divine feminine, and tell it using these stamps on this tree bark and make it a story. So I have to tell people not to worry too much about, what each individual stamp means, because listening to those things people want, there was no real picture in your mind about what the design is, right? How do you express this? Maybe you could express it in a painting, and you can paint these things, but we're using these, abstracts and geometry and designs to tell these very fluid stories. So that's kind of where, your abilities as a storyteller come in, to be able to talk about these things and put a design and hope somebody loves it when it's finished. So same thing when people are printing their kihei. A lot of times I think it's okay if you just print something and you just like the design. You don't always have to have a meaning attached to it. It can just be something that makes you happy. But it can have a meaning. So say you use a triangle kind of shape. We've seen this shape a lot over the years for the kukia imauna, for the taking care of the mountain. So it is a mountain design, but it's also a shark tooth design, and it's also a sense of place design, and it can also be a metaphorical design where it is the great accomplishment you achieved, like getting your master's in social work, or the obstacles you had to get over, like getting your master's in social work. So we can have a lot of things. It doesn't have to be a definite thing, because plus if your stamp only meant one thing, then you'd have to get a new stamp every time you want to talk about something. I don't have a stamp that talks about that's a cancer cell. I had to just choose one and say, okay, today you're my cancer cell and we're gonna get you because we're gonna heal. So it's all of these things. It's storytelling, it's the intent of the kapa, what it's for, what it means to you, or what it means to the person you're making it for. So these are all things to think about. Nothing hard and fast, nothing kapu, nothing, we don't know, we don't understand. So we aren't going to be penalized for using designs. Most of the designs I use are the ones like I see in the museum that were carved in the 1800s, but I make them mean whatever I need them to mean on the kapa I'm working on. So hope that was helpful talking about that, and appreciate the opportunity always to help and create those. And if you have any questions about kapa things, do contact me, kapahawaii@gmail.com, or just hunt me down on the web. I'm there. Aloha.
Please take it away.
Okay. So aloha, everybody, and I'm Dalani. And what my video was about was just a calmer version of me talking about what I talk about. But for me in kapa making, in regards to design, and as a teacher, people who are learning about kapa always want to know, what are the designs, what are all these different things. You can see on the wall behind me, there's all kind of designs of different stuff, and some are kind of modern looking, some are kind of traditional looking. And even within that, there was a couple of different traditions. In Hawaiian Kapa, there was the post-contact and the pre-contact. So in pre-contact, when we look at those designs, they're really different from what they started doing after Europeans got here and shared metal and dyes and different things with them. And by having metal, they were able to carve the stamps that we use, the ohikapala, which is a thin bamboo stamp, that they weren't using before contact. they would find natural items and stamp with those, or they would just hand paint. And so a lot of the work that I do now making kapa is commissioned work, meaning people contact me and say, we'd like a piece of kapa and we want it to mean this. And so they have all these stories that they want me to tell in the kapa. That's a little bit tricky because none of the information about what any of the designs meant when we look at our old kapa in the museums, um, we know what nothing means. And most of the design work is not representational. You don't see animals or plants or flowers or things. You don't see any of this. If you look at Tongan Kapa or Fijian, you'll see different things. When you look at Cora-Allen's Kapa, you're going to see different things. But ours was it was very abstract geometric. Where you do see representational things is in the petroglyphs. So the hardest material to work, carving stone, was where they put the things you actually recognize, the dog and the guy surfing and the rainbow man and all these people and things all carved into the rocks. But you don't see any of those in the soft goods, in the weaving, in the kapa, in the gourds, anything like that. You don't see representational stuff. When people started saying, "Oh, can you make a kapa?" and I wanted to talk about this, then I was kind of like, well, you know, I'm a storyteller. I'm a Hawaiian. I've had um, training in many things besides kapa that all tied into kapa. I danced hula, paddled canoe, and surfed and studied medicinal arts and fighting arts and all different kinds of things. And ultimately, in kapa, all of these stories, all of these concepts, all of these things all kind of came and made a home there. So when somebody said, I'd like a kapa, and I wanted to talk about my recovery from cancer, how difficult that was for me, but how, you know, with the help of the doctors, with the help of God, I was able to get through this. I was able to be healed. I'm better now. Can you make a kapa that tells that story? Now, when you're thinking of this story, you know, you don't really see what are these things? What are you talking about? So I had to kind of break it down into like cancer. That's like a dark time of your life. Okay, we're going to put some darkness in there, or maybe we're going to put it at the bottom of the kapa, like this darkness and this moving upwards towards healing and light. And so there's all this crazy kind of stuff you got to think of. Um, but then it also has to make sense in kapa design. So a few years ago, you know, we Google all day long, right? Well, one day Google Googled me and they said, we're going to make a doodle for Israel Kamakawiwa Ole for his birthday. And we'd like some kapa designs in that. And we'd like some of those designs to have lemon drops and rainbows. And I was like, okay, because we don't have no lemon drops and rainbows kapa designs. So I agonized trying to figure out how I'm going to make these rainbows and lemon drops and make it make sense in the kapa, in a kapa way of thinking. Because even though I was an artist before I was in kapa, in Hawaiian kapa, it was so important to me that when you looked at it, you always knew it was Hawaiian kapa. Because like I said, we didn't have it for, when I talk about not having it existent for almost 100 years, that was ours. Everybody else was still doing their work in the rest of the Pacific and wherever, but we weren't doing ours. So it was really important to me that people could recognize it, that it was our kapa. So that was a really interesting experience, but all came out great. You can Google Israel Kamakawiwa Ole on Google and you'll see it. It was a lot of fun. But, you know, in the meantime, I had stories like, can you make a kapa that talks about my 4 children? They all have different energies, and I'd like it in a kapa. No, okay. Okay, so tell me about one of your children. And she said, oh my gosh, the baby, the sun rises with her smile. And I was like, oh, I can see that. I can see that. I can put that in here. Or somebody said, well, we live in, well, like this one right here. I'll put this one for one. So this one, the girl was, she lives in San Francisco. Her husband is from Hawaii. And she wanted something that kind of talked about, he missed home, he missed the ocean, he missed the moon and all these different kind of things from home. But then I also want to include San Francisco. All of this red thing here is kind of my rendition of the traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge, you know, the sunsets in California, all these great, here's a little fish hooks, you know, that he missed fishing back home and the Eva birds. So, you know, we got to do all kind of crazy things. Plus, put that up later. Plus, I don't do drafts. So people say, can I see how it's going to look? I say, I have no idea how it's going to look. I'm thinking of ideas. It's hurting my brain. I'm going to sketch some kind of thoughts. But when I start working, the stamps, the kappa, the dies all start saying something else. They all want a different thing. I'm going to go in a different direction. Who knows where that's going to go? So it's been really, really, it's interesting and it's exhausting to do that. It'd be nice if I could just, just make a bunch of kappa and it's like, it's pretty. I like it. That's nice. But, then there's stories like, I'm on a new journey in my life and I'm seeking the divine feminine. Can you make me a kappa that talks about that? Sure, it can. So I had to think about that one, like, divine feminine, it's very abstract. Okay, but I see some things. So I started thinking about, how about some Hawaiian feminine divines? How about some of our goddesses and our people and our feminine interpretations? So I came up with a design. The girl loved it. It was really cool. So, Anna, go ahead and put up that one. So this is one I just finished. And so I'm gonna show you the design and what was my the thought process of it. So this one's just done. So it's a commission. Somebody asked me for, she's getting it for her wife. And so she said, um, this girl is living in the mainland, and then she met a Hawaiian person who told her, you need to go back home to Hawaii. The girl in the mainland was going to school and getting working on her law degree. And so she sent me all the story about, she was working on her genealogy. She found people who lived in different islands and from California. She liked this color marigold. She had some conflicted feelings about her family's involvement in the sugarcane industry and a bunch of different things. And so it's like, okay, I can see that. So if you look at this one, you see the border on the outside it's a water border. So in Hawaiian, the word for law and justice and these kind of things is kana vai, W-A-I, which also vai means water. And the laws in ancient Hawaii concerning water were so important that a lot of them had death penalties if you broke them. So I thought, okay, well, let's surround this couple with the water. So not only to mean the law and kanawai, but also I pulled 4 different streams and rivers from the places she had family. So California, Big Island, what's the other one? Oahu and Kauai. So, in California, I said, what's the biggest river in California? Well, Sacramento River. Has a native name too, Bohememem, which means the great waters. So we put those waters in to connect her back to her different places. And as we move in, you can see these printed designs on the outside. Now we're getting into the sugar. Now, the thing about sugar also, huge consumer of water. Just water for days. They end up having to drill into all our artesian wells and things so that they could feed this hungry, hungry thing. But sugar didn't only come with, the people who brought sugar to grow it commercially. The people who settled Hawaii also brought sugar with them. And it was a famine food. It was medicinal. It was to help you take your medicine. It was, you chewed on it to keep your teeth clean. So when Polynesians brought it, it was very, it was a very loved and special thing. So you're going to see that I actually just went ahead and painted sugarcane stalks. The native varieties are actually really beautiful. And although that is not something we did, after 30 years, I'm in this place where I really want to get back to my illustration, artistic side and my painting side. And every once in a while, I'll throw a little something in there. So I just kind of went for it with these sugarcane stalks. And then I have that marigold color that she liked. And I just made that a flame element because you got to burn the sugarcane. So I remember when they still grew sugarcane on Oahu, and you see all this smoke and all this black ash falling everywhere from where they had to burn all the leaves off of it. And then you see this design looks almost like a flower, but it's not. If you look at just one of those petals, that actually relates back to a law instituted during the time of Kamehameha I. So he was visiting the island and he paddled up on the shore, and there was some fishermen there on the beach, and they don't know him. They see the stranger, and so Kamehameha started running after them, and then he got his foot caught in the rocks. And so one of the fishermen came back and just whacked him with his paddle and broke the paddle. And so later on, as the king was talking about this, he said, you know what? That guy was within his right to do that because I was a stranger. I threatened them. And so he created this law called the Law of the Splinter Paddle that is, a social justice law that common people, the people could lay down at the side of the roads and they could be safe. They wouldn't, shouldn't be attacked or anything like this. And so, in just even trying to figure out how to put that design on there. Should I just make a bunch of paddles? Should the design be like something, something? And then, I made a print and I did like this. I went, oh, you know what? We don't typically have this kind of flower design, but I got sugar cane. I might as well just go for it. So I put those in like that. You have the split in that paddle. And even the green design in the water design, that they're different, just so you know that they're different bodies of water. So it took me about 2 weeks just to pull an idea together and then another week to paint it because then I'm working on it. And as an artist, you want it to make sense to the people who are getting it. You want it to make sense to you as the practitioner, as somebody who hopes people look at it and go, wow, that is kind of a different looking Hawaiian Kapa, but I dig it. I like it. And it reminded me of Cora-Allen's work actually, because it just, it looks like her kind of the kind of thing she does, which made me love it even more because I love her. And yeah, that's that story. So in Kappa, there's 900,000 things we can talk about, but I only have 10 minutes. So that's the thing I wanted to share with you. And thank you for being here. And thank you to Jill for helping curate this awesome exhibit. And yeah, mahalo and aloha.
Thank
Turn it
you
back
so
to you, Anna.
much. Thank you so much, Dalani. All right, up next we have Cora-Allen. Cora-Allen is a multidisciplinary artist of Maori and Niue descendant, originally from Waitakere. In recent years, her practice has focused on her efforts to revive the art form of Hiapo. Prior to this, she completed her master's in visual art and design and performance from Auckland University of Technology in 2013, also receiving an AUT Postgraduate Dean's Award for her research. A contemporary practitioner of the Niuean tradition of bark cloth known as Hiapo, she is credited with reviving the sleeping art form, which has not been practiced in Niue for several generations. Her work is very important to the Niuean community and has been exhibited in Australia, Aotearoa, Canada, England, and Niue. Her work is a major part of collections including the Museum of New Zealand, Te Papa Tongarewa, Auckland War Memorial Museum, and the Wallace Arts Trust. Cora-Allen was an artist in residence at the McCannon House Residency and the Mana Moana and Te Whare Residency in Wellington in 2021. She has received the Creative New Zealand Pacific Heritage Artist Award in 2020, and annual arts grant funding to focus full-time on her Hiapo practice in 2021. She is a founding member of the BC Collective and is a maker of Hiape, Niuean bark cloth. So please take the stage, Ms. Cora-Allen.
Whakalofalahea tuki matolosi, koe hingoa haku Cora-Allen. So I'm a practitioner from Niue, living in Aotearoa. After hearing Dalani speak, I think it'd be good to speak specifically on just one thing. I want to talk about how I want to use Hiapo going forward in the future. So Hiapo hasn't been practiced in over 100 years. And when I was asked to create Hiapo, it was first from my grandparents, Whakaafi Lafaiki and Fosia Lafaiki. They asked me to make their burial cloths. And when I first said yes, I did not know that there weren't any makers. And so I was naively excited to attempt and to look for this knowledge, thinking that it was just attainable in a sense that I could just go find someone and learn it. And what I did learn is that traditional knowledges aren't for everyone. Traditional knowledge won't come to you if you're not the right person for it, and gates will not be opened if you're not the right person for it. And I understand gatekeepers. However, I understand what it means to hold knowledge that hasn't been held in over 100 years. My grandparents were the very first Niue people in over to be buried with Hiapo. And if I hadn't had made the Hiapo, there's no way we would have been able to find it. And so my grandparents moved from Niue to Aotearoa in the 60s. And then from those kinds of moments, never really had connection to land with Niue. And so being able to make the burial Hiapo from plants and from pigments that were from the island were really important for me. I have a really strong attachment to making kākahu, making items for my family. And so in this image, you'll see to the left, Grayson. He was the very first young person to graduate from his kindergarten in Australia wearing a sipota. And so for me to be able to be a part of that story just really, I think, helped me understand the importance of why I'm actually doing this work. I do come from an art background and I have access to many things being here in Aotearoa, but for myself, I know that it's for my community. And the next image is myself, my husband, and my two boys. My husband is from the Lakota tribe, so he's from the Rosebud Race, and our wedding was very much a highlight of our cultures and things we love. And so I made the boys their sipota. And don't let this image fool you. They only wore it for the images. They did not want to wear the sipota walking down the aisle. However, as they've grown up, 2 years on, they understand that when it comes to formal occasions, oh, where's my sipota? I'll go put it on. The next image to the right is one that I saw in Harvard recently. That sipota was made in the 1800s. And if you go up the left side of the sipota, you might not be able to see it, but the second panel from the top is actually a building with a coconut tree. And on the other side of the sipota is a group of people sitting around the bottom of a coconut tree beating Hiapo. And like Dalani had mentioned before, a lot of my work is very free flow. A lot of Niue and Tapa and Hiapo patterns are very much the stories that were around us. So the makers used flora and fauna from around them, from around the caves where people were buried, from right outside their houses to locate their Hiapo and their story. And so very much that is something that I've done as part of my own work, is continue to share stories. And the work on the right is Jessica Pasisi, who graduated with her PhD. And in this image, I see the future for Hiapo, that it is a part of our stories, a part of our lives. This was taken 2 years ago. And Jess was shot, like a photograph was shot of her sitting next to a Māori person with a korowai, so a traditional cloak. And I'm Māori and I'm Niuean, so to see both of my whakapapa. Awesome, thank you. I'm not sure what I said last, but and so a lot of my practice is figuring out ways to use Hiapo in my family. And so this is Queenie. Her name is Zoe, and she was born placed onto the Hiapo. At the time, my auntie, who was a midwife, wasn't sure how she was going to sneak the Hiapo into the cubicle, into the theatre room. But she worked it out because me and my sister both knew how important it is to have these processes and to have these opportunities to have Hiapo as part of our memories. And so it's funny because this particular Hiapo was made with the intention to have strong female lineage connections, to have strength, and for her to have connections to the taiao, to the whenua, to the land, to the forest, and to the bush that she will go and visit when we go back to Niue. And as she's grown up, she is a fiery, sassy, amazing young, curious little girl. And I feel like that has been reflected in the hiapo that we designed for her. And so being Māori as well, I have incorporated different knowledge baskets from my Māori heritage into my Niue Hiapo. And however, as you can see, this is a sample of some of the work. It's very, very different from Hiapo itself. It's not just black and white patterns. It incorporates the whenua, so the soils from our land. These are some Hiapo banners that I made last year for a traveling show. And it incorporates so many different aspects of stories about the tangata moana, so the people who came from Moana to Aotearoa. And at the moment, I'm using, I guess, my practice in an art sense to share these stories. And so being able to make my own cloth, being able to make my own pigments, all from the bush, all from the land, feels like a really nice way to share our own perspectives. And Aotearoa was one of the last places that was discovered by Westerners. You can't see my fingers, but I'm doing that thing where, kind of like bunny ears. And so when it comes to thinking about what our narrative looks like, it hasn't been written by us. And for myself, this is a space where other artists before me have been contributing to the space of us rewriting our stories, our narratives from the Moana space. And that is what I hope for Niue Hiapo. And that's a lot of what I think in the place that I'm at with making too, is really looking at how I want to use Hiapo as a mode of telling story and exploring patterns. And if I was to draw from photographs from our last visit to Niue, I would be able to draw my husband and a friend sitting underneath coconut trees weaving baskets. And that is something that I want to continue to do so that my kids see that, and that when they see the work, they're like, oh yeah, that's Hiapo, and that is what we do. We go and sit underneath coconut trees, we tell our stories. And just to share one last thing, I think it's really important, like Dalani said, is like when you see a kapa, oh, that's a kapa from Hawaii. And when you see Hiapo, oh, that's Niue and Hiapo. And those things make us really special and unique because they can recognize characters of our tupuna, of our ancestors. And there's not just this kind of mishmash, but there is, like, even with Dalani, with her new works, I'm like, oh, I can see that that's kapa because of those fine lines and everything. Just has a structure, almost like a body composition of kapa. And so, yeah, and I really am grateful to be able to talk with alongside Lehua and Dalani. So thank you, Jill and Lisa and Anna, for this opportunity. Thank you. Whakuelahi.
Thank you so much, Cora-Allen. I'm so glad that you were able to jump back on and join us, and we were able to hear the rest of your presentation. Next up, we have our last presenter of the evening. We have Lehuauakea. She is a native Hawaiian interdisciplinary artist and kapa maker from Papai'iko, Hawaii, with a particular focus on the labor-intensive making of kapa or bark cloth. O heo kapala, carved bamboo printing tools, and the use of natural pigments. Lehua is able to breathe new life into patterns and traditions practiced for generations. Through these traditional native Hawaiian craft practices, their work addresses themes of environmental relations, indigenous cultural resilience, and contemporary Kanaka Moli identity. Lehuauakea has spent the last several years learning from well-known bark cloth maker Wesley Sin of the Moanan Lua, Hawaii, who trained in bark cloth making with Hua Van Dorp, Beatrice Kraus, Malia Solomon, Carla Freitas, and Dennis Kanae of Hawaii, and Mary Pritchard of Samoa. Through these intergenerational land-based practices, Lehuauakea aims to build on this tradition and ultimately share it with the next generation to ensure that this mode of Indigenous storytelling is carried well into the future. Lehuauakea's work has been shown in exhibitions nationally and internationally, and is held in many private and public art collections around the globe. The artist is currently based between the continent and Hawaii after earning their Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in painting at Pacific Northwest College of Art. So, Lehuauakea, it is your turn. Take the stage away, please.
Everyone. Yeah, so my name is Lehuauakea. My family on my Hawaiian side is from the Big Island, a little bit on Kauai, and a little bit on Maui. But Big Island is my hometown. It's my home island. And yeah, we didn't really coordinate our presentations today, and I knew that we'd kind of be talking about all the things because that's kind of how we are. So I just kind of put together like a little clump of what is important to me and kind of what's gotten my work to where I am now as a baby kappa maker, as a baby artist. And I still think that I'm figuring a lot of things out. And luckily I have people to look up to like Auntie Dalani here who are pushing boundaries, I feel, and also honoring the traditions of where this work comes from. And so I feel, even though I'm still figuring a lot out, I have wonderful people to look up to and to empower the work that I want to share with people going forward. So yeah, let's see. Okay, so this is my Uncle Wes. He's my kumu. He's the one who kind of brought me into the whole world of Kappa to begin with. And on the right is the first time I ever gathered Wauke with him. That was at Antirini Ya'i Bellows Grove on Oahu. And from there, kind of went down the rabbit hole. And that was back in 2018. So kind of never looked back from there. And I think all three of us have fine arts backgrounds or backgrounds in art that is not kappa. And I never imagined that I would be a kappa maker or going down the path of, traditional cultural practices. But I think it's given me the most purpose and drive and vision and responsibility within my art practice and with beyond it. So yeah, it continues to be more than just work, more than just something that I like to do. So yeah. And there's some of my kapala from a few years ago. The collection has grown since then, but I kind of in a roundabout way started making kappa before I made kappa. I was in college and I really felt like there was a void in the work I was doing. It was getting boring, but also didn't feel like me. And so I remember when I was a kid, I would learn about the patterns that we would use and, our tattooing. I learned about kappa making as a kid. Never did it until I was 22, 23. But these tools stuck out to me, and I started making the tools before I ever made any kappa. And in this picture are some of the first ones that I had ever made. And I didn't know it at the time, but it would start me on this whole journey that I'll walk for the rest of my life, I suppose. But yeah, I think starting from these like really humble beginnings. And within my work, it's it's really important that I try to learn as much as I can. Um, like Delaney was saying, this practice was not passed down to our people ancestrally for any of the contemporary makers that are alive today. And so a huge part of why I do what I do is to make sure that we don't get to that point again where we're not passing it down to our future generations. So my goal is to learn as much as I can so that my kids and their kids and their kids and so on um, have more of a foundation than we did. And so these are a couple of the first pieces I made. And I was not only learning how to make the material, but also kind of studying different design compositions and techniques on, especially with the one on the right hand side, kind of making it my own thing, but still grounded in the foundations of the traditional practice itself. And then on the left, that was me kind of experimenting and having fun for the first time with Kapa. I wanted to push the limits of what I thought was possible with something as simple as tree bark, dirt, and plant juice. Um, and so I think there's a lot of expectations from non-Kapa makers and people who aren't familiar with the practice that because the materials are organic and simple, that the works are going to be, I don't like using this word, but primitive, which is something that I think a lot of us try to push back against because the term primitive tends to be used in a minimizing context, a way to other non-white practices and keep it in a lesser sense than fine art. Um, so with my work, I like to make it as refined as I can, and that's something that'll just keep me going for a long time, I think. Um, with these pieces, they're newer ones that I did earlier this year, and they're like fraternal twins. They mirror each other. I wanted to again like push the limits of Hawaiian design that looks inherently Hawaiian but is also contemporary because I made it today. So again, like looking back at traditional and older samples of kapa and looking at how complex they actually really are. And this one was not an easy pair of works to make. They're about 6 feet long. Um, and so everything is mirrored, the design elements, but also the colors. So yeah, I think it was yeah, I like to have like fun with what I do. I think I'm pretty serious a lot of the time, but I'm also like serious about enjoying what I do. And this is another piece that kind of did that. This one lives in Australia now. And again, with like the Kapala patterns, I really wanted to show the diversity of Hawaiian design and what's possible. And by no means is my work like the only thing that's possible, but I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like being able to show the range of Hawaiian Kapa. And I also just really like Ojai Kapala. And this is another newer piece. Again, like I wanted to push the boundaries of like what people expect with simple materials. And the patterns in my pieces almost always tell stories. I think there's different ways of going about that, like how Dalani was explaining with her commissions and how she kind of approaches things. I try to do something sort of similar where um, the patterns aren't just necessarily arbitrary. Um, And so the stories that make their way into my work are usually echoing our traditional oral histories and mythologies, mo'olelo that are passed down and address different elements of Hawaiian spirituality and lived histories. And to that note, you know, because Kapa was not something that I learned from my family, from my parents or grandparents, although Uncle Wes has kind of been in my family for 60 years or so. Um, my grandma was his babysitter, but um, it's important to me that not only does the practice of making kapa get passed down to my kids, but also the patterns that we have and that the ones that I've newly created get passed down as well. So just like the ancestral markings that so many of us, including myself, carry on our bodies, I want to be able to pass down my tools and the purposes that I've created them for, including this pattern, to future generations. So it's much more than just creating a pretty pattern. It's something that goes back deeper in time, you know, 100 years from now plus. And this one was a commission that I made for a collector in Canada. And you know, a lot of the work that I do kind of is a balance between private commissions and work that I make for like gallery and museum shows. So I think my fine art background kind of informs how I approach both of these things. Um, and yeah, I like people will approach me with like a story or sometimes like in this case, no story at all. And they're just like, have fun, do whatever you want. Like, here's some money, like go make what you've wanted to make for a long time and just haven't had the chance to do. So, um, you know, with things like this, just super grateful for the trust and the support to um, carry on this work, especially as, you know, still an emerging artist. And just the belief in kapa making as a whole. And I think the interest of in bark cloth has grown, which is really exciting. Not just within our community, but outside of it as well. It's really amazing to see more people learning about this practice, why it's important, and wanting to learn how to do it as well. This one was really fun to do. It was a huge learning curve because it's hanging, but these are giant kappa tapestries, I guess you could call them, that are suspended from the ceiling. And again, the ohekapala are used to represent four different kupua, female kupua that are related in some way to the development of the spiritual and cultural practice of surfing. And this one was made for an exhibition in Phoenix, Arizona called He'enalu, the Art and Legacy of Hawaiian Surfing. And it was curated by my partner and his mom, Ian Kwali'i and Carolyn Kwali'i. And it was really important that I represent kapa making in this context, even though it was so far away from home out in the Arizona desert, which is kind of a funny place to do a surfing show, but it was really important because, you know, a lot of our people are diaspora now, and we were so humbled and overwhelmed by the positive feedback that we'd received with this show. And all the Hawaiians who actually came out of the woodwork to attend our programming. And we're just so happy to see things like this and our people's stories and our histories represented right there. And so I think that's another thing that's really powerful for me with kappa making. It's, you know, it is art, and art has the power to bring people together. But I also see it going a little deeper with kappa because it is so um, traditional of a practice that it has the power to inspire and empower people to be proud of who they are and their roots and to learn more about where they come from. Um, and doing so much work on the continent here um, has taught me kind of the role and responsibility that kappa plays on a larger scale. I think this is my last, yeah, this is my last one. Um, and yeah, this is a project that is still ongoing. Um, and kind of featuring a different side of things instead of using like hand painted or Ohe Kapala elements. I wanted to incorporate some of the histories of Native Hawaiian quilting and kind of the crossover and overlap you see happening with kappa and the transition from bark cloth into Western textiles. And this kind of, for me, represents that overlap. And these are larger pieces that will be going up in Portland, Oregon very soon. So yeah, I tried to make it quick. Um, but yeah, just thank you for listening to all of us ramble about our very niche passions. And so yeah, mahalo.
Thank you so much, Lehuauakea, for that wonderful presentation and all of our speakers. We're going to transition into a question and answer part of the program now. We are running a little bit behind. We do understand if you need to jump off, but our speakers will stay for a couple more minutes and we'll answer a couple more questions. And since we had, well, a couple questions since we had some technical difficulties, we're running a little bit behind schedule. But if you would please put any questions you have for our speakers in the Q&A, we will read them out to our speakers. And please make sure they are in the Q&A and not the chat. If they're in the chat, we may not see them, and we want to be sure to answer everyone's questions that we can. So go ahead and please submit those to the Q&A. And while I'm waiting for those to populate, I do have a couple questions for our speakers. And Dalani, I'll give the first one to you since you were our first speaker. But you mentioned that you enjoy kind of sneaking imagery in, and then you did that with the sugarcane. Is there other imagery that you like to sneak in or have snuck into some of your work before?
That's a good question. And you know, growing up, I was always drawing horses and dragons and things. And so kappa is just like the anti of everything that I actually love to do. It's mathematical, it's geometrics, it's abstracts, things that I just didn't love art wise. And so it's been a real interesting struggle for me. But I do sneak things in. And one time I read this legend from Kauai about a girl who was kind of abandoned by her parents, but she became a really good kappa maker. And so then the parents wanted her back because they sold her kappa. But nobody wanted to be with her because she had a like this big birthmark on her body. And so, but she looked like a particular type of octopus. And of course, as it happens, she meets this octopus who, of course, turns into a guy who has a birthmark like her. And so I end up doing my own kind of rendition of this, and it had kappa design behind it, but it had the girl and had the octopus. And I used octopus cuttlefish ink for that kappa for the first time and fell in love with that as an ink. But when that piece was being shown, somebody who knew the story from Kauai asked me, and she said, you know, if I remember that story right, they both had this kind of birthmark, funky looking thing on them. And I said, this is true. Glad you pointed that out. But to each other, they were perfect. And so that's why I made them with no birthmark or anything on it. So yeah, that was one of the very few things I snuck in. I'm gonna try and do more of that though in the future. We'll see.
I love that you sneak some of the imagery in. I think that's so fun. And it makes the piece, you know, it adds an extra layer of depth as well. And my next question is for you, Cora-Allen. You mentioned using and making your own pigments. What are some of your favorite materials that you use to make your own pigments?
I like this bright yellow pigment. It's called Tengai Burn, and it's from the driveway of our marae, so where our traditional lands are. And you just kind of like wait for a sunny day and you'll find the brightest part and you just walk over and grab it. And then across from the driveway is an urupa, which is a cemetery, a family cemetery. And there's like a small road that if you go hook to the right, there's like a bright white porcelain kind of clay. I love using that too. And so um, I I source most of my stuff just from earth whenua pigments because it's easy. I don't have to do any boiling or reduction or squeezing juices or harvesting bark. I'm purely just grabbing the chunks, sticking it in my boot of my car and driving off. And so, yeah, stuff that's easily and accessible. But no, it's been beautiful to see all the makers and all the different colors used. And gosh, Lehua, the work's so tight. So clean. Yeah, no, it's yeah, I think the others can attest to it too. Like whatever colors you kind of find in the earth and out there, it's just always exciting.
Is that the same for the other two of you, for Dalani and Lehuauakea?
Yeah, I only have like two pigments that I haven't gathered myself personally. And those were done with like a through a trade. Um, so I feel like that lends itself to having like a deeper responsibility and connection to not only the land from which they come, but also the process. Um, and you know, you look at dirt differently. Like you look at that really special red ochre pigment as like gold. Um, so I know you guys understand how it is.
Um, you learn to stop the car really quickly because you'll see something on the side of the road and have to pull over, pick it, gather it, ask it first, then pick it, gather it, put it in your car, take it home. Um, you know, everybody wants to do natural dye classes, but a lot of times I don't want to because people have to understand that the natural dyes don't come from a 55-gallon drum of paint like you can get from Walmart or something. And like Lehua said, some of these things are so precious. You know, I've got the same rock of that red clay alai that I've had for about 25 years because we use it like by the spoonful and stretch it out to cover a whole piece of kapa. That's how precious these dyes are to us. So yeah, it's a thing.
I love that. We have a question from the audience for Lehuauakea. How many layers of wauke do you beat into your kapa?
It depends like what I'm going for, what I'm making, and what I need it for. Um, I've made kihei that are just like the the garments that are just like one sheet. Um, and you know, those are a little bit more lacy than some of the other more felted, fermented pieces. If I'm doing something that's more for like wall art that I would like to be more solid, that I'm hand painting on, I need it to be a different surface texture and a little bit thicker so it's not going to buckle as much. So that gets like two layers. And then if I'm doing something like, I think I included one of the pieces that I had pulpo, um, which is like a pulped version of kapa making instead of working with like the material in full strips. Um, then yeah, I don't know how to quantify the amount of layers with that one, but uh thicker than just like a fine like tissue or lacy piece.
Thank you. All right, I have, since we are running behind on time, I'm going to keep the questions short. I'm going to ask one last question that is for all of you. You all mentioned that, this is a tradition in your cultures that has really died out and been brought back by the work that you're doing. So where do you see Kapa and Hiapo now going in the future?
Pick who you want to start.
Since you're talking, we'll make you start.
Well, one of the things I realized as we taught is that in real, there's not a whole lot of usable things that you can make. Like if you're weaving labhala, like the pandanus, there are lots of things people can make. They make the hats and they make the covers for their water bottles and they make the earrings and the jewelry and all kind of things. And in Kappa, there isn't just all these derivative random things. We make kapa for wrapping, for the burials, for the bones that we bring back from museums. We make kapa for the babies, like Cora did, and we've done pieces like that. People want to catch their baby on a piece of kapa when it's born. Funeral kapa and wedding kapa and things like this. So as we think of why are we spending all this time teaching people and what are they really going to make? This is something that I've 30 years later, I'm coming to a point because when we teach classes with little kids, we'll take a tree and cut it into all these little pieces so that they can all try. But that's like the worst use of a perfectly good 10-foot long bouquet tree is to chop it all up and nothing we actually would have done. But for the sake of giving these children this experience of what their ancestors did, of showing them in a museum the same tools that they got to use in this class, then sometimes that's the sacrifice we have to make. But and even when I was teaching small kids, I understood that if that was the most I could get, not trying to make 8th graders into kapa makers, but if the most I could get was they went to Bishop Museum, they saw the kapa display, and they were actually familiar with the shark's tooth knife and the ohikapala and all these things, that was the most I would hope for at that point for those kids, that they recognize something from our art because they had actually handled it.
That's really beautiful. Either of you want to add to that?
I might just add something small. Okay. I think I'm guided by what the community want. So I do definitely, like this lady, an older nanny wanted something for her wallet to be wrapped in. So whatever you want, I'll just kind of make, because I want the community to actually enjoy it. And if they don't have 6 by 5 meter walls to hang a piece of hiapo, I'm not going to make it that big. So I think for myself, I just want to make pieces that the community will enjoy and have in their homes. Yeah.
I'm kind of a similar way. Like I've made things for people's graduations. I've made them for I'm gonna make a larger piece of like a kihei for someone's wedding next year. But I've also done like stuff that can be framed small and hung on a wall and given as like special birthday or anniversary gifts. And I think those are ways that we can work to bring Kappa back into our communities, back into our homes in whatever way that people want to invite it to come. Um, and so especially within like Hawaiian community, I try to work with people with whatever budget they have, on a sliding scale to make sure that no one is excluded from accessing this material. which I think is really important. And on the other hand, I think that sustaining me and sustaining my practice financially is also um, important to do because it allows me to do things like sliding scale for my community. And so things like, working with museums and selling my work through galleries and um, doing larger commissions for like corporations, businesses, hotels, like those things are important as well because we're not like living on subsistence agriculture anymore. We're not like hunter-gatherers where we don't have to live in a capitalist society. We need, unfortunately, these things to be able to make kapa. It's a very time-consuming thing. And so making kapa, I think, as your job is a luxury. And I want to make sure that I balance my financial living with making it accessible to my community. So, future of kapa making, all the things that people want, whether it's like a wallet cover or something for their wedding, but also art, art purposes, to maybe, if not anything else, just inspire people's appreciation for our culture and to spread it on a larger audience, to share it on a larger platform with people who may not otherwise have ever seen or learned about kapa.
Thank you so much to the three of you for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dalani. Thank you, Cora-Allen. And thank you, Lehuauakea. I'm going to close this out now. So we have two other virtual talks that have been a part of this Bark Rhythms exhibition. We had the virtual talk for the Ugandan bark cloth and Indonesian bark paper, which is available on our website for those of you who would like to watch it under resources, as well as the one for bast fibers and Mexican amate, with other fantastic speakers. So please do check those out and take a look at them. For those of you that really enjoyed this presentation, please do consider making a donation to the museum that allows us to do programs like this for free. So if you go to https mygeorgiatech.gatech.edu/giving/papermaking museum, you can donate to the museum. Also, these are our social media links. If you would like to follow us, or if you would like to be a part of our newsletter that sends out about these talks, workshops, and artifacts of the month, send me an email at anna.dahl@rbi.gatech.edu and I'll add you to our list. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Thank you again to our speakers. Thank you to Virginia and Maya who are running background for me. Thank you. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you, Anna. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you guys. Get back to work now.